Welcome back. Today we're doing another episode in our series on fabrication that doesn't suck. Today we're going to talk about how to make dimples in sheet metal when you don't have a set of dimple dies. Let's watch the show intro. I'll see you in about 30 seconds. I'm Mike and this is My Car's Shop.
Working out of a 100-year-old refurbished barn, bringing 35 years of experience to projects considered beyond repair. Vision, creativity, and problem solving are essential tools in this place. Watch as we transform junk into polished metal miracles. This is My Car's Shop.
When you do a lot of sheet metal work, you can pretty much become very tool rich and cash poor very quickly. There are so many different tools that you can buy and so many different options. And many times, I think particularly today where there is so much availability at relatively inexpensive prices, we think we have to have everything. The problem is that there are so many things that are now available to us, we don't realize how it quickly snowballs into a continual acquisition of more and more stuff that we may use for just one job and never use again. So part of this series on fabrication that doesn't suck is to present you with ways that you can do things where you don't have to buy stuff and you can use just whatever you find laying around to accomplish some things that you might want to do when you're doing sheet metal work. So for example, if you want to make dimples in your sheet metal, well, first of all, some of you may not even know what a dimple is in sheet metal, and that's okay, because by the end of this video, you're going to know. But you can use simple things like a hole saw and a socket and a trailer hitch ball to make a dimple in sheet metal. And I've got a piece that you might recognize from one of our more recent episodes on fabrication that doesn't suck, where I was talking about how to tip an edge on curved surfaces or curved edges, or I don't know, tip an edge here. And I thought, well, I'll just take the same piece of metal and suppose that we want to put a dimple right here in this sheet metal for whatever reason. I don't know, decorative. It's a way to lighten things because you can make a hole, but it kind of provides a little more structural rigidity because there's a dimple. So let's just get into how to make a dimple in sheet metal when you don't have a set of dimple dies. We created this piece here for our imaginary repair that goes onto our imaginary car. And let's suppose that we feel that we want to put a hole here to lighten this thing up and still provide some strength. So we're going to put this size hole, which is, I don't remember, 1 1/4 hole. That's right, this was the same size hole that I used on the 68 GTS to put the front marker lights in on those fiberglass fenders. But we're going to measure this out carefully and determine that we want to put our dimple about, well, let's go in just a little more. We want to put our dimple right here. So I've marked that with where I'm going to drill my pilot hole. I want to make sure that my diameters are all good, that it's somewhat centered. And it's perfectly centered now from here, and it's in from the edge. Well, I'm just guessing, you know that. So we'll take our snap punch and just make a center mark there, if a snap punch would work, which it's not. I don't know why. Oh, that's why. Got a good center punch hole there now. And we'll take our little, that's probably less than an 1/8 inch. That looks more like a 16th inch bit. We're just making the pilot hole. Okay, that's good. And remember that we go right back and share the basics. I assume that, we have various levels of skill here that people have. And I don't want to do anything assuming anything. So always drill a pilot hole because it keeps your hole saw from doing a walkabout while you're trying to drill this. So we're going to go ahead and drill our hole. Take your time. Probably should put a little lube on there, but I won't. not quite through yet. Turn this down, my battery's getting weak. There we go. So we got our little metal coin now stuck in the drill. We'll get that out of there later. So now, we pull this out of here, and we have a nicely formed hole in our sheet metal now for weight relief for, let's say we're making a bracket for something, I don't know, and we want to do some weight reduction and kind of give it some cosmetic appeal over just this solid piece of metal. So that's what we're going to do, and I think we'll make our dimple on this side. I was originally going to make it on this side, but cosmetically, if I was building this to put in a car, I would think the dimple should be on this side. It would look on this side here. It would look a little nicer. The first thing I need to do is take and clean this up a little bit because it's got all kinds of burrs on the back side, and that's going to interfere in the process of making the dimple. So I'm just going to take and file those burrs off. It'd be better if I had a flat file. I was commenting to Dad the other day that it's funny, in all the years I've done this work, I've never really bought a good set of files. And I don't have a good flat file. So we'll make this work. I've got a nice set of round files. Okay, that's nice and, well, fairly smooth. Okay, good enough. I'm not cutting myself on it, so we can take it to the next step. So the next step is a bit tricky because it involves several things. There's two ways you can do this. I use a socket about the same size as the hole, just a little bit bigger, to help form that dimple, and I actually think I need a little bit bigger socket, so I'm going to go get one. So for reference, I'm using an 1 5/16" socket here, and the hardest part is kind of getting it lined up on there to be able to pound it down, and it really is better if you have two people, but there's a couple ways you can do this. You can use a golf ball, which isn't the best situation, but you do have to have a hammer. And then you have to use your eyeballs to kind of get this lined up in there the way you want it so that it's centered in that socket. It's just your best guess. And the golf ball is a little bit bouncy, but it can do the job. And you can move it around, get it centered again. Starting to get a little bit of a dimple there. And part of the reason I'm using the golf ball is just to get it started. Nice and stuck now. But we're starting to get a little dimple on it now. Now that little bit of dimple that I got there is just to help get it centered so that when I go to the next thing that I'm going to use, it stays in its place. Goodbye. So the next thing I use is a trailer ball, and you can use the ball without the hitch attached to it. And this is where you're really going to make progress on making your dimple, because it will stretch and ring the metal while you're at it. So make sure it's square. Getting there. A little bit more. And the more of a dimple that you get on it, the easier it is to keep it centered in the socket that you're using for your die. Very good. Okay, now the only thing we need to do, we've got our dimple now, and the only thing we need to do is go around it and hammer the metal back flat, because it did tend to warp it just a little bit. But the first thing I'm going to do is go here And I'm going to get a metal hammer rather than using this, because I don't use my ball peen hammers because these surfaces are all marred up from beating on everything, and your body hammers should never be used for anything other than sheet metal, so they don't mar your sheet metal. So they should be almost mirror-like smooth. So again, we're just coming in here and we're just trying to crisp this up now by using our hammer. Looking good. Starting to straighten our metal out a little bit. Very good. And I screwed up and flattened it out a little bit over there, so we will take our hitch ball and just go back and touch it up again. Remember, with sheet metal work, you can't be in a hurry. You got to take your time. The faster you try to move things, the more you're going to mess stuff up. Very good. Got a little bit of wow in the metal right there. And I did go out instead of in. I don't know why I did that, but that's fine. I guess I kind of like it anyway. It looks pretty good. So all of my bragging about going to go in, I ended up doing it backwards. For this, it doesn't matter. It's more about showing you the process, but pay attention to make sure you're putting your dimple the direction you want it, because otherwise you'll do what I did and screw it up. But it's looking good. I don't think there's much more I'm going to want to do to that. It's got some scratches and stuff on it, so maybe I'll ditch over that real quick with the purple wheel just to get a little metal finish on it. And it is got a little bit of a bow in it right there. I can see that. Looking good. Okay. Yeah, I got a little bit right there. I wonder if I took and put this on the flat surface. The problem is I have this. I know what to use. I know what to use. Just got an old little piece of light rail from literally railroad. And I did knock my dimple in just a little bit there, but I took care of this spot in here that was looking a little bit wonky. Yeah, much better. So again, it takes a little time. Go out and spend your $200-300 or whatever for dimple dies if you want, but you can make something pretty respectable just like this. So I'm going to put my socket back in one more time. Actually, I think I'll go the other way this time. Just because I can. I think it works a little bit better to have the socket in. I think it's because of the mass of this thing. But it actually turned out nice. I think I'm just going to call it good at that. It's a pretty respectable dimple. So let's purple wheel that, and then maybe we'll shoot a little paint over that just so you can get the full effect. So wipe it down with a little prep saw. Get some of that residue of that purple wheel off of there because it does tend to leave a little. Hopefully there's enough of this. This is just Rust-Oleum primer, nothing fancy. Oops, a little carried away there. Okay, we'll let that dry and then we'll come back once it's dry and show you what we've got. Well, there you go. I force dried that with the torch, and so it's got a couple little bubbles in it. But once that's completely dry, if you were to sand that down, do a little fill prime on there, that thing would look almost perfect. And all I used was stuff I had in my toolbox: a hammer, a socket, a trailer hitch, and a golf ball just to get it started, so that it would center itself down in the socket. This is the way I do it. I know there are others here on YouTube that share different ways of doing things. You can use a piece of pipe. I like sockets because I have all kinds of various size of sockets, and a trailer hitch ball works for multiple sizes. And if you have the small ball, the medium, the large, and the extra large, 1 7/8, 1 3/4, 2 inch, 2 5/8, whatever. You can make all kinds of different dimples. You get smaller than that, you can use ball bearings and pieces of pipe or smaller sockets. I like sockets, like I said, because I have them, and they have a little taper in them, and they work pretty well, as you can see. So I shared every single step of this process. There's nothing that I did off camera. You've seen it for exactly how I do it. I don't use those very often, but I think if you see that, you can get some ideas of places maybe you can apply that to the projects that you're working on. I've got some places on the Stitches Challenger I've actually been thinking about that you can do it. So, you know, you might need to purchase a hole saw for the size, but you'd use hole saws for a lot of things, and I think most of us have most of those basic tools anyway. That's going to do it for this episode. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do that. Hit the bell so you receive those notifications. Tell me what other metalworking techniques you might like me to tackle here on this series called Metalworking That Doesn't Suck. I appreciate you being here. We're over on the other social media platforms /MyCarsShop. And one other thing we can't forget, it's very important around here. Rock!